All right, now we are going to take a look at shape, center, and spread. So the idea here is that we want to have a way to verbally summarize a distribution, verbally summarize quantitative data. So we want to verbally summarize quantitative data. And to do this, we often look at a visual summary and base our verbal summary off of that. So we often look at a visual summary to do so. For shape, this is one of the three main things that we will put in our verbal summary. For shape, we have a few main shapes that we use to describe dot plots and histograms. They certainly do not have to always fit one of these shapes, but they are some of the more common ones. So some possible shapes. We could have our histogram have all of the boxes or bars be more or less the same height. We call this rectangular or uniform. So on a uniform distribution, it doesn't really matter which category you pick, they all pretty much are equally represented. Next up, we have one that looks more like a hill. For now, your book calls this symmetric with a central peak. You will also likely hear me refer to this as normal. So if you hear me say normal, I really mean symmetric with a central peak. Next up, we may sort of have that hill shape, but have the hill shoved to one side. So if we shove our hill to the left and then sort of have a long tail to the right, we call this skewed right. So skew means we sort of pull it in sort of a surprising direction or a wrong direction. We kind of mess with the data. So in skewed right, most of the data is on the left. The stuff on the right is kind of surprising. It's messing with the data, pulling away from where most individuals are. So we call it skewed right because the surprising stuff is on the right. Similarly, we have skewed left. Skewed left, we have our hill on the right. Most of the data is to the right, and then we've got that tail going to the left. So this is skewed left. Again, the stuff on the left is surprising, unusual, it's rare. Most of the values are to the right. So the left is surprising, we skew in that direction. For our center, we will have multiple ways of showing center. So some common ways of center are the mean, median, and mode. The mean is what we typically hear as the average. The median is literally the middle of the list of data. If it's in order, in numerical order. And the mode is the most frequent. So these are all ways of describing center. The median is often the best representation. The mode is more like the most common. So if you're talking, if you want center to mean the most common, the mode might be the way to do so. But typically, we will be using the mean and the median, and that is what we will be focusing on. Next up, we have spread. We will have lots of ways of describing spread. So to describe spread, we will have the range. We will have something called the interquartile range. And then we will have something called standard deviation. These will come a bit later. I believe interquartile range is module 6. And standard deviation is module 7, if I am remembering correctly. So we will get to those later. The range is just how far the smallest data value and the largest data value are from each other. So to find the range, we just do the largest value minus the smallest value. All right, so we're going to quickly practice talking about shape, center, and spread. So in this example, in the video module 4 on dot plots, we made a dot plot for a distribution of quiz scores, which I have copied below. And now our job is to write a short paragraph describing the distribution's shape, center, and spread. So for this set of data, there are various things we could say. So we could say that the quiz scores fell between 4 and 10, our smallest and largest scores, with an overall range of, again, to find our range, we just do the large minus the small. So we would do 10 minus 4, and we get 6. So with an overall range of 6, so there's our spread. The scores were, we need to pick a shape. So in this case, it does seem that the scores are more shifted to the right. We have a lot of 7, 8, 9s, and even some 10s, and then it kind of tilts to the left. So it does maybe seem a little shifted to the right. The surprising or rare scores are to the left. So we might say that these were skewed left. And then it's centered around. This we're going to eyeball at this point. It looks like they're kind of centered around that 8, possibly around the 7, right? So around 7 or 8. So at this point, we're not being at all precise. We're not calculating the mean. We're not finding the median. I'm just kind of looking at what looks to be sort of in the center of the data around our peak. All right. So that's a very quick 2-sentence paragraph covering shape, center, and spread of our quiz score distribution.